All right. Welcome to the Strength Lab podcast. I am your host, Tyler Ramsey, and I have a very special guest for you, my coach, Ollie Clarke, all the way from England. He is a pro strongman, a strongman coach, muscle building coach, nutritionist, and a weight cut specialist. He was 2022's Europe's strongest man for the 90 kg class, and he's had multiple top finishes at World's Strongest Man and England's Strongest Man.
Look at that. Thank you, bro.
Thanks for taking the time to get on here. I know you're 6 hours ahead.
No, thank you for having me, mate. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it.
So we'll just start right off the top here. What led you to become a strength coach?
So, bit of a background story. What it was, I started training back when I was 11. So, before that, growing up as a kid, I was always really fat, really overweight, and I was bullied quite a lot because of it. So, I was always going to school, getting picked on every day, bullied every day, and like anyone, you just hate it. And
Yeah.
being a kid, you don't really know how things work. You don't really know how diets work or food and stuff, because you just eat what you're given, and that's it, really. So, I was in a bit of a situation there in primary school. I don't know what that's called. I think it's elementary school in America,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
10 years old sort of thing. So I started dieting by myself. And like I say, being a kid, you don't really have a clue how to do this, what's going on. So all I would do is I just wouldn't eat. So I just starve myself. Some days I would go like 3 days without eating anything at all because I just thought the less I did, the more I'd lose. And to be fair, I did lose a lot of weight. I went from about 11 stone at 10 years old to then about 5.5 stone within a few months. So I literally lost nearly half of my body weight and I went to the skin and bones. And
Okay.
I got diagnosed with anorexia. So I had to go to the counselors, the doctors. To be honest with you, all of I mean the counseling is good, it's what you kind of have to go through, but none of it really helped. And I ended up getting more and more referrals. I had to go to a child's mental health specialist called CAMS. But that didn't really help me either. The only thing that saved me, the only thing that really helped me was transferring the addiction from trying to lose weight and be skinny to then lifting weights. So at 11 years old, I was old enough to join a gym. I joined the first gym, and then that was it. I went from being anorexic, being obsessed with being skinny, to then researching the hell out of bodybuilding and trying to build my physique that way. So like I say, I just spend my time reading about bodybuilding, looking about bodybuilding. Arnold's Encyclopedia to
Yep.
Modern Bodybuilding, if any of you guys have read that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll just
That's
do
a
everything I
popular
could
one
about
for
it, and I
sure.
was hooked. It's a classic. It's a good doorstop as well with the size of
Hmm.
it, but um, but yeah, I would just try and learn as much as I could, and I'd train as much as I could. And to be honest with you, I got pretty good results from 11 to 13. I would just train, and then I did my first powerlifting competition when I just turned 13.
Okay.
The powerlifting comp, I remember I bench pressed 100 kilograms at 13, and it was a British record at the time. So from that one day, I was hooked. And ever since then, I've never looked back. So regarding how I got into it, pretty much that all my life I've just been competing in powerlifting. At 17-year old, I did my first strongman competition and then just carried on ever since.
Yeah. So like strongman, competing in strongman more than powerlifting.
It's a difficult one because I love one rep maxes.
Hmm.
Everyone loves to just max out the test their strength. But the problem with powerlifting, I find, is it's just so anal. Like I just don't care for these little rules, like where your foot can move a tiny inch, or you can like these such anal rules. I mean, I love it and I respect it so much, but for me, it's just a little bit too much, too over the top. So I love the kind of raw part of strongman. I don't know how you think about that.
Yeah. So strongman, I feel like you can almost you try and push the limit as much as you can, wearing grip shirts, wearing multiple belts if you can, kind of trying to like build up if you're doing a certain event. I think it's really you're just trying to like push the needle on every little thing. And then if you get caught, like obviously that isn't good, but you have to try and lift the most weight or do the event as fast as possible. So
100%. It's just getting that weight from A to B that matters. I mean, there are some things that I would like to see gone in strongman. Like I'd love for strongman to be suitless. I always think that these sort of things, but then again, this is what we've done for years. This is what strongman's always done. So you can't change these things because this is what the records and what the comps have been built and made on. So yeah, mate, strongman for me is a preference.
Yeah. I did a powerlifting meet in 2018, and I did that before I did strongman. Uh, I enjoyed it, but then once I moved over to strongman, I love strongman way more. Like I'm more of like a athletic, like moving events person. So like
Yeah.
the just the static strength of powerlifting got kind of boring, and using like my track skills and basketball skills, like the athleticism, jumping, running with things helped me transition to strongman more than just doing the static lifts of powerlifting.
100%. And that's what I mean. Like you can use it to your strengths. And the way strongman has gone as well, it isn't just all about hitting that top end strength or hitting that just number one max. It is about being an athlete, like you say. You've got to be fast, you've got to be fit, you've got to be mobile. You have to bring every kind of element into one.
Yeah. On to the next question. What are the foundational principles of effective strength training, in your opinion? Like, what 3 to 5 things do you think are like the foundations for a good strength training program?
3 to 5 things. Well, number one is going to be, do you mean from like a coach's standpoint or from a program itself standpoint?
Programming.
Programming. So 3 to 5 things. You hear that?
Yeah,
I'm going to tell him to shut up 1 second. Sorry.
you're fine.
Sorry about that, mate.
You're good.
Um, yeah, well, number one is making sure you're kind of planning your rest. You want to make sure that you're not just going 100% all the time. You're not going balls out to the wall, just trying to push the limits every single session, trying to be a superhero. You've got to be kind of going to the gym, hitting these weights, and you want to know that you could have lifted more. You want to go away knowing that you've got a little bit more in the tank so you can always keep progressing. Obviously, you want to have some kind of planned deload in there as well. You don't want to be just accumulating fatigue week after week and then running to a brick wall where you can then obviously no longer progress. Um, so number one would probably be fatigue management, I would say.
Yeah, that's a huge thing that I feel like you implemented to me when I joined like coaching, being coached by you, was that fatigue management. I feel like I was going balls to the wall so long, and then when I got to comp time, I was just not ready. So I mean, like when we were training for America's Strongest Man, we cut out leg days before event days because I was just so smoked. I couldn't do yoke as fast as I did when I was doing heavy squats, and then the sandbag runs were just not as quick as when we had squats in. We took those out, and then things really went up after that.
100%. That's what I mean. And that's the thing as well. I feel like there's less. I'm not really someone who picks kind of like training systems and set training systems for this and that, or just has one style of training. I prefer to kind of use a bit of a blend of a few different styles of training and also apply that to the individual depending on where they are in their journey and for their kind of short-term and long-term goals. So, like for example, for natural athletes like yourself, you're not going to be able to recover anywhere near as well as some of my enhanced athletes. So many things have to be factored in there to change, obviously, to guarantee continued progression from that.
Yeah. How do you approach programming for like a beginner and then to somebody that is more advanced? Like, is there things that you test beginners on? Like when you start to coach them, is there things that you test them on? And is that different than when you have somebody that's advanced?
Yeah, sure. So it depends how much of a beginner they are. If they're kind of like a complete straight noob coming into the gym that wants to get into strength training, then the initial beginning phase of anything is going to be to learn how to lift and to learn how to move. Because if they don't, like that is probably the biggest principle of all. You need to know how to lift efficiently and safely. Um, Otherwise, you're just going to hit a wall and run into a plateau. Like if you can always deadlift a certain amount in a certain technique that isn't going to be efficient. You're always going to be able to lift in that way, but you're only going to be able to lift up to a certain weight, and then that's going to be a ceiling for you. For you to then blast past that, you're going to have to take things back, make sure you're perfect, and then keep moving forward with things. So the number one thing for a complete beginner is to learn how to lift and to learn how to move. The key as well with beginners is you're going to find that they can recover way better than advanced athletes, obviously, because the loads that they're lifting are way less. And the other thing is, I would even argue that oftentimes a complete beginner could even go a whole year of training without needing a deload because they're not even loaded yet, depending on their strength level, depending on
Yeah,
male or female, what their kind of job's like as well. Um, but yeah, that would be a big one.
perfect. What's like, in your opinion, the most important factor in building long-term strength?
Building long-term strength is staying injury free. That is the biggest of all.
I figured you
If
were
you
going to
can,
say that. I figured you were going to say that.
yeah, if you can stay injury free, then you can just keep climbing, climbing, climbing. It's literally once you get to a certain level, injuries are all that's going to hold you back. Like injuries and health, they're the two most important things.
Do you think that people in strongman and powerlifting get hurt more than just people that do like general pop strength training, or since they know that they're like, they know how to lift if they're like competing in powerlifting and strongman, do you think they get hurt less because they know how to lift compared to somebody that goes into the gym and doesn't kind of
Yeah,
necessarily know how to lift?
yeah, I know what you mean exactly. Yeah, it's a bit of it's a kind of a line, isn't it? I would say that probably you're going to have more common injuries from the beginners, the general pop who really don't have a clue how to lift. But at the same time, if someone at the top or if someone that's an advanced athlete gets injured, then that injury is likely to be like really bad.
Yes,
Whereas
yes. Yeah.
the load lifting, everything like that. So
Yeah.
I would say so.
Yeah. Because I remember when you tore your bicep. That was like
Oh yeah,
what? That was what, about 9, 10 months ago?
I think 6 or 7. Yeah, it
Six or
wasn't too
seven.
long.
So even closer. Yeah.
That was nice. Yeah, that's what my for that. That's a prime example. My training was going fantastically into that competition. I'd just done loads of cuts to under 90, and I basically decided I was going to do Europe's Strongest Man as a 105. So I didn't have the pressure to cut, and my strength was just like skyrocketing because I'd been lifting such light weights for such a long time, and because I've been holding back my food, I just had this like massive rebound. And where I got so strong so quick, it was literally I was lifting up a sandbag. I was training at Ford's gym and just snapped the tendon off the bone. So I don't know if you can see it's this one. It's a little bit smaller
Yep.
than that one. Just back a bit. But
Yep.
yeah, what I mean, it's just annoying.
But you've made a really good recovery though.
Oh, thank you, mate.
Yeah.
Cheers, I appreciate
Yeah. It's been awesome.
it.
What are the biggest differences between training for strength versus training for size and hypertrophy?
So, training for size and hypertrophy, you want to be kind of going as close to mechanical. Yeah, you want to be training to failure really, if you can, and or as close to failure as you can do. Whereas, for example, with strength training, you really don't want to be going to failure. Like if you start going to failure on your deadlifts, on your squats, or anything like that, number one, you're going to be at massive risk of injury, and number two, you're just going to completely smoke your CNS. So for strength training, it's kind of like that little quote I said. You want to be able to walk away knowing that you've got a little bit more in the tank each time. Obviously, as you come close to comp or to whatever, that might be a little bit different. But with regards to hypertrophy and muscle building, personally, I believe training close to failure, less volume as well. Yeah, that's how I like to look at things.
So some people that might be listening to this may not know what CNS like fatigue is. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, sure. So CNS fatigue stands for central nervous system fatigue. It's pretty much when you train. Imagine you've got like a big uh, bucket of water, and every time you train, you're kind of emptying that bucket a little bit more, and you come to a point where that bug is empty, it's got nothing left, and then you kind of smoked. That's the same as you and your nervous system. When you train, you kind of beating yourself up a bit more, a little bit more, even when you're getting amped up, when you're thinking about a certain lift, or say you've got a certain song playing that really kind of gets you going, just getting that adrenaline spike and that adrenaline response, it's going to take some away from your nervous system. And when we accumulate that over weeks and weeks and weeks, this is why you'll see sometimes people getting closer to a competition and the weights are actually moving a little bit slower or they're actually
Mhm.
looking a little bit worse. And it isn't that they're getting weaker or anything like that. It's just that they're doing these lifts under fatigue now, whereas before, further up in the phase, further down, they were way fresher, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I know when we were training for America's Strongest Man the last couple weeks or week, we were still doing lifts, but they were, 50, 60%. And you had in the description, no music and nasal breathing. Uh, you know, why do you have the why do you want the nasal breathing?
100%. Yeah, that's one I actually learned loads as well. And the reason is it's just gonna kind of it's gonna keep you in that relaxed state. It's not you kind of like
Mm-hmm.
hyperventilating, getting into that fight or flight situation. You staying relaxed, calm, and nice and easy. Because, like I say, even just thinking about a certain lift, or like you can sit there thinking about like doing a max deadlift, playing that favorite song, and you'll start getting goosebumps. You'll start getting like adrenaline, and even just doing that, you're going to take away from your nervous system. So in our deload weeks, we want to be as relaxed as possible, even though we're lifting the 60% weights. I don't want you trying to attack them like they're 100%. I want you to kind of treat them like they are
Yeah,
60% and just, if that makes sense.
yeah, that's perfect. You kind of touched on this a little earlier, but do you prefer any certain periodization models like linear, conjugate, or block?
It really does depend on the athlete, on the individual, and it also depends as well on their style of training and their personality, because you'll get some lifters. I don't know what you'd call them, but they're kind of like more kind of like calm people, more like steady people. They don't really like sending it too much. And then
Hmm.
you've got other people who are just like they just go in the gym and they just want to rip some weight up and just go mental. In which case, sometimes doing something like a conjugate block would suit their personality type more. And then again, it does depend on where they are, like in with their training history, how close they are to what their goals are, and so forth. But yeah, for me, it kind of really depends. More of a linear periodization for like a complete beginner would be fine. So yeah,
And when you mean linear, you mean just like slowly adding weight each week as the reps decrease.
as the reps come down, yeah, exactly that.
Yep. How do you assess an athlete's weaknesses? And then on top of that, what's your take on like accessory work? And do you think that's important for your strength gains?
Sure, yeah, 100%. I'm a big advocate for accessory work. I know a lot of coaches aren't. I know some coaches even just program like just doing specific event work and compound work. And for me, I'm completely against for a couple of reasons. Number one, obviously, your accessory lifts are what are gonna your accessory with your accessory lifts, you're going to be working on those specific weaknesses that you would have kind of seen in your coach. And the way that you would kind of see what the weakness is just from looking at videos and from looking at where the form breaks down, like what part of the deadlift do they struggle with the most, what part of the deadlift is maybe the slowest, or where do they get pulled out of position on their log press or so and so forth. Is it their lockout that's a problem? It might even be like a timing issue. Like maybe their timing of their push press is out because they can't get that connection with their legs to then obviously pressing overhead. So it will really depend on the individual, the problem is to what you're going to do and what drill you're going to use. Um, but yeah, 1,000,000% matching up the accessory is going to be really important. And on top of that, with your other accessory work and with your kind of smaller, lighter accessory work, that's where you're going to be building a little bit more muscle, and obviously, you're going to then be able to transfer that muscle into more strength potential.
How do you structure a training cycle for peak performance? Like how long would you make the training cycle be? I know we've done like 6 or 8 weeks. It's not like super long. I know some people do 12 weeks. What's your do you have like a sweet spot that you like to go? go with for yourself or for your
Yeah, yeah,
clients?
cool. Sure. Yeah. So for me, I've actually been working out more and more recently in the last few comps that I've been doing that I really prefer a way shorter peak. So for me, this is what we discussed about my bicep because my training just went through the roof. I think I was doing like an 8 week peak for that, and my training was flying every single week. Literally by week four, I was ready. That was it, and I was really really peaked. And I feel like that was probably a component to why it went because I was just training too heavy for so long after that. So oftentimes what you'll find is more experienced athletes and more kind of longer term athletes are going to peak way quicker than less experienced athletes. Plus, if they've got experience training certain events, so if they're already a well-versed athlete, they know how to do, for example, like a one-arm dumbbell press. They know how to pick up a sandbag. They've already ingrained it in them. They know exactly what they're doing. They don't need to be practicing it for 12 weeks, 8 weeks, however long, because by the time that they come to actually getting ready for the biceps hanging off, or something's like torn, or they've got niggles here, and this really hurts, and everything's going to be acting up. So when you come to comp day, you're not going to be able to apply 100% effort. You're going to have some neural inhibition, and it's just not going to be fun. So again, to answer that, it does depend on the kind of level they're at, their experience. For me, like I say, 4 weeks, I'm really, really.
Can you hear me, Ollie? Are you back?
Oh, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
When did I freeze? What did I freeze at?
Um, you were saying something about your about 4 weeks of peaking,
Do you want
and
to
then
just answer that question again, and we'll start that one again?
yeah, we can start that one again.
Yes.
How do you structure a training cycle for peak performance?
Sure. So, in terms of peaking an athlete, it will depend massively on their experience level, how long they've been training for, and their kind of overall strength level. For example, for me, what I've been working out more and more with the competitions that I've been doing recently is that I don't need very long at all to peak. Like for me, for example, we've worked out that a sweet spot is like 4 weeks. I wasn't even training events for like the last five. Oh, sorry, I only started training events 4 to 5 weeks before my last England's competition. And like I say, at the end of the day, if you're an athlete that has been training and competing for years and years and years, you already know how to lift a sandbag. You already know how to lift a one-arm dumbbell press. You've already ingrained that technique inside. So you just need to familiarize yourself with it for a couple of weeks to really kind of bring it out. But what would happen if you're kind of doing that for 12 weeks, even 8 weeks, and you're a strong, big athlete, you're going to get to the competition and you're going to be niggling here, you're going to be aching here, you're going to have pains everywhere, you're going to have neural inhibition on the day because things are going to be hurting and your elbows are going to be sore, your
Mm-hmm.
biceps will be hanging off from all the sandbag runs and stuff. So for like a really advanced athlete, I would say 4 weeks is great for a peak. For someone that's maybe less advanced and for someone that's like more of a common answer would be like 8 weeks. I'd find I really like around like for you, for example, 6 to 8 weeks. For a lot of my other athletes, around 6 to 8 weeks is a bit of a sweet spot.
Yeah, we did that for the last three competitions was about 6 to 8 weeks.
6 to 8, yeah, 100%. Because at the end of the day, like I say, you know how to do these things, you know how to hit these lifts, and it's just going to make you worse and worse by the time you end up competing.
Yeah. So how did you get into becoming a weight cutting specialist? Like how you just had to keep doing it for competitions, or did you take like a
Yeah,
certification or
yeah, I've done a couple different certifications. There are I don't know what they're called. I don't know how they're recognized, but they were from MMA fighters. They weren't actually from strongman related or anything like that. They were from fighters. But for me, it's more about kind of learning whilst doing it and applying then and changing things then and getting all the little tips and tricks from it. And I just find the nutrition side very, very interesting, the manipulation side very interesting. So I kind of looked into it more and more. Um, sorry, what was the question? How did I get into it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think where I was just doing big mental cuts to under 90, it kind of just flowed a little bit better and it kind of just fit a bit better because I was I was an opens athlete and then I was a 105 athlete. And then I'd walk around being like 101, 102. So I thought, let's just go to the 90s and then that was it really.
Yeah. And now you said you're going up to the 105s.
Yeah, I've
You think
decided it's
you're,
time, yeah.
yeah.
It's time to fully commit
There
100%
you go.
because although everyone will tell you it was an easy weight cut, it was this, it was that, there is no easy weight cut. Any weight cut you do is always going to be somewhat difficult. So for me, it was just that I was on really low calorie. I was on really low calories for like the last 3 weeks into competition all the time. And where I love competing and I want to compete often, the problem I had was being on such low calories and then training hard and training heavy. I'm just dead. Like I just have no brain function. My business suffers because I can't work as much, and I just decided enough's enough for that.
Yeah,
So
it's tough. I've never had
mate,
to I've never really had to do a huge weight cut. Like I'm like 203, 205. Like it's super easy for me to cut. I just don't have to skip a meal and drink less water and I'm like already there.
yeah, yeah. I've got to pull out every trick in the book to get down, but yeah, I'm excited to now just eat a little bit more food.
Yeah.
It's going to be nice.
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking about nutrition, how does nutrition impact strength gains? Is there any underrated tips that people like overlook on the nutrition side?
In my opinion, nutrition is massively overlooked anyway in terms of strongman and powerlifting and probably strength sports on the whole. I think everyone really is dialed in on their program. Everyone's always 100%. They wouldn't miss a lift, miss anything. But a lot of people will then go back and they'll start eating crap and they'll just kind of have their diet go out over their head as soon as they finish that session. But for a couple of reasons, like it's going to make sure you're fully hydrated. It's going to make sure that you're fully fueled, like for the sessions to hit the lift. It's going to make sure that as well you're healthy, eating certain foods. Obviously, addressing blood work with certain foods as well. You're going to enable yourself to be more efficient. Like your body as a machine is going to be more efficient, so it's going to be better at recovering. It's going to be better at sleeping. It's just going to be better. It's just going to be better at everything, pretty much if you're healthier. So yeah, food will probably be like I've said a few things are so important, but food technique just number one.
Yeah. Do you think nutrition is more important for someone that is natural compared to someone that is on PEDs or using
I
enhancing
think so.
enhancing substances?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I think obviously nutrition is important for everyone.
Yes.
Whether you if you're enhanced and you're eating like shit, you're gonna get crap results. But at the same time, for natural guys, their nutrition is their PEDs. That's what they can push. That's what they can really manipulate. That's what they can change. And that I would say is one of the most important things for them, 100%. So yeah, I would say definitely more important for naturals than enhanced. But at the same time, the enhanced guys still need to dial it in 100%.
Yeah. Still very important for everybody. I
Definitely.
know we kind of touched on managing fatigue, but is there anything that you do for yourself or for other your clients? How do you manage it? Like I know that we do things online. So how do you manage fatigue in someone that you don't see a lot?
Yeah, I just like to ask my clients to send and upload videos for me so I can also see how things are looking and whether or not things are slowing down a little bit too much. And I'll also get them to give me a bit of a rundown of like their personal life as well. Like, for example, you've obviously got the baby on the way, so your stress is going to be a little bit higher. We're going to be able to take that into account into training sometimes as well. Um, Things like that, just being more involved in the athlete and their life, really.
Do you think people underestimate how much stress plays like a part on their body and in their training?
Oh, 100%. Stress is the number one fatiguer. Yeah, stress can kill you. Yeah, like even if it's someone who kind of has like an active job, maybe they're like a builder or something like that, or you've got someone who's got a desk-based job. Generally, you're going to think, right, the guy who's sitting at the desk all day is going to be way more recovered. He's going to be sweet compared to the guy who's out on site, kind of walking around all day. And I would even say that's probably the other way around. Personally, like mental stress, I've found is probably the biggest killer of gains.
Yeah, yeah. I train people from like all over, like jobs and just family and kids, and their kids are in sports. Then and they come in some weeks and they're like, man, I'm just so tired. I'm so fatigued. Like I and they're just like stressed out, and they wonder why their lifts are kind of stalling, or I'm like, you just gotta. I mean, you're here. You gotta do what you can while you're here, but that stress is gonna get to you.
100%, mate, definitely. So it's kind of like explaining that to people and letting them know how important it is to go home and make sure you're getting your 8 hours sleep, maybe a little bit more if you can, and hitting your meals as much as you can as well.
Going off of that, like how do you or what do you think the role of micronutrients play in recovery and performance? Is there certain micronutrients that you think are better for most people to take, like vitamin D, magnesium? Is there anything like those kind of nutrients you think everybody should be taking?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that they're kind of more important than others. I would say having a balance and a well-round, just as long as you're kind of not deficient in one, making sure your kind of levels are at an optimal level would be the most important. Like I say, be ensuring that you are healthy and not deficient in certain things is going to allow your body to be healthy and to be able to recover better, pump stuff around better, and use things better.
Yeah. What are your top three tips for optimizing recovery? I know we said sleep is one, so two other things that you
Two
got.
other things, well, sleep, stress management, and correct programming. So you're obviously planning in your deloads.
Perfect. Are there any supplements you find particularly useful for strength athletes?
Any supplements? There is I don't know if you'd call this a supplement. There's a couple of things. Um, Yeah, well, one of them is BPC 157. It's obviously a peptide. Depends where you're from or what your federations are to whether you're allowed to use it or not. But this has been a bit of a game changer for me for a couple of reasons. Obviously, overall inflammation and overall repairing of any kind of issues or niggles that you've got. But also on top of that, it's really helped with my gut health and if you've kind of got any issues with your stomach or any kind of problems related to that, often, well, obviously it depends on what it is, but often BPC can be a big helper of that as well. So I would say BPC is definitely, in terms of actual supplements themselves, I'm not a really big advocate of supplements. I like a potassium-based electrolyte. I really like to have high potassium and low sodium as part of a diet structure, but yeah, other than that, I wouldn't really say there's too much that's important.
Going off your answer there, do you think creatine is necessary, or can you get strong without it?
Yeah, you can definitely get strong without it 100%. I mean, I mean, if you got it, you might as well chuck 5 grams in there a day. But at the end of the day, if you're eating good quality red meat, you're going to have plenty of creatine there too. So I wouldn't really bother too much.
What are the biggest non-training factors that impact strength progression?
Non-training factors. I'd probably say number one can be like your partner. If you've got a partner who isn't very supportive, because this is a bit of a selfish sport, if you've got a partner who isn't very supportive or they're not really fully on board with it, they're going to want you to kind of hurry up at the gym and they're going to want you to, oh, we can't do events this weekend. We're going to be off doing this family thing. You can't have that if you want to go long term to be as top as you can. So having a supportive partner will be key. Other factors we've obviously already mentioned the main ones like
Mm-hmm.
stress and recovery, that kind of stuff, but injury free as well. Yeah, I can't really think massively off the top of my head from what we haven't mentioned
Yeah,
already.
that's okay. We've kind of touched on things back and forth, so
Yeah,
that's a good one off the top of your head, the partner one. So that was good.
cheers.
How do you keep athletes motivated during strength plateaus?
Yeah, so if an athlete's not motivated, that's when I'll have a bit of a chat with them or a conversation with them and kind of see what we can do and see why. Like for example, I know a few months ago with you, you had a bit like a bit of a period where you weren't feeling your best. You was feeling a little bit smoked. You obviously had the groin thing as well. So we had a bit of a chat and we tried to do a bit more of a hypertrophy thing for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
We'll kind of I'll just speak to them really. I'll ask them like, what's the crack? What's happening here? Maybe it might be that they haven't competed in a long time, and they might just need a little comp as a goal to put that pressure on their training again. Because it is hard when you're not competing, when you're in off season, when you kind of feel like you're going through the motions. It feels like you're kind of not doing anything. But that's why another thing is it's important to give athletes a little bit like little side quests. Like for example, if I've got an athlete in an off-season phase and we're working on a certain thing, I'll be like, I want us to tick off this. Maybe it's this deficit deadlift or this snatch grip number, or I want us to hit this set. And then we're kind of done on this, and we'll get some good adaptations from that. So, kind of giving them a few side quests to aim for in their off season is good. But yeah, as I say, just being in good contact with them.
Yeah, I remember when I was going through that, and you were like, "Is there any numbers that you want to hit or anything you want to go after?" And that's when I said I wanted to do the natural strongman deadlift record, stone record, and the log record. You know,
Yeah,
within 2 years or whatever coming up, just because of the groin thing. We weren't sure if I was going to have surgery or not, and then um, that would have put a hold on things, for recovery and stuff. But yeah, I think once we get back into it, I think we'll be going for those records.
you're nailing them 100%, mate. Yeah, definitely.
How do you modify training for someone who is doing strength and endurance at the same time? Do you just blend them together, or do you have them do certain sessions of like just a cardio day and then they have their strength training on the side? How do you blend those two different things?
Yeah, sure. So it'll kind of depend on what the immediate goal is. If they have got some kind of competition coming up, or depending on what they are doing, whether what they're doing for their kind of endurance, maybe it's running, I don't know. Depending on that, we'll prioritize one more than the other. There's a good saying, if you're trying to chase two rabbits at once, you'll catch none. And that is the same with this. If you're kind of just dipping your toe in both, you're kind of not really going to go anywhere with one or the other. So I would speak to them. I'd see what the kind of priority of the initial phase is right now. We would prioritize that and we put the other one in there still, but a little bit on the back burner, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I know when you were up in Iceland, Thor was training for the Arnold.
Yep.
Kind of want to know what was that like being in the gym with Thor, and then what's it been like training or being mentored by Sebastian?
Oh mate, it was incredible. That I think that was probably the heaviest deadlift set ever done. I don't know, obviously sumo don't count, does it? So, but I don't know. I think that deadlift was probably the heaviest deadlift that ever come. So it was amazing to be part of it, and the atmosphere there is just insane. Icelanders are just so nice. They're just good people. They've got a good dry sense of humor as well. But everyone just kind of gets up for it. Everyone kind of cheers everyone on, and as soon as you're going for a lift, everyone's like these massive bearded men are screaming at you. So there's definitely no way you're going to miss certain lifts or anything. But yeah, and honestly, it was a fantastic experience. And learning from Seb is amazing as well. He's probably the best strength coach there is on the planet. He's coached the world's strongest man. He's coached the biggest deadlifter ever, and it's an honor to be able to be mentored by him and to learn from him.
Yeah. Do you have any plans to go to Australia or Iceland anytime soon?
Yeah, so I was I'm hoping to go back to Australia within the next couple of months. I was supposed to be going out there more kind of long term, but I had a bit of family health issues and stuff, so it didn't end up happening immediately in the time we wanted it to. But I'm looking to go out there again ASAP, and I'm hoping to go out to Iceland again soon too, because like I say, I love it there. It's just such a cool country, such a cool place. It's just bloody expensive.
Yeah. How long of a flight is it to get there from where you're at?
For me, it's not too bad. It's about 3 hours.
Oh, that's not bad at
But
all.
But to go to Australia, it is, I think last time we went, I think it was 12 hours and then another 8 hour flight or another 9 hour flight. So it was just disgusting.
Got a couple hot takes and debates for you here.
Yep.
What's a controversial opinion you have about strength training?
Controversial opinion I have about strength training.
Or are there any trends in the fitness industry that you think are overrated?
Any trends that are overrated? Oh, I'm useless at these. Right, can we come back to these two? I'm going to get a good answer.
Yeah, we can come back to those. What's the biggest misconception people have about strength training?
The biggest misconception that people have about strength training is that people think that you're just going to break your back and get injured, when in fact, you're probably going to get yourself more injured or you're going to probably experience more pain if you don't strength train.
Love that answer. Love that answer. Are there any strength training fads that you believe are a waste of time?
Fads. See, this is where I'm pretty useless. I'm not very good with the fads. I don't really keep up with the
Is there
so
anything diet wise, any diet fads that you believe are a waste of time?
many diet fads. Yeah, I actually think a lot of diets are fads. But then again, it is a bit of a difficult one because at the end of the day, the diet that works is the diet that works for the individual. So if it happens that for their lifestyle and for their kind of structure and how they kind of work, that a certain fad diet actually really works for them and gets them to lose weight, gets them into the position they want to be, then that diet has technically worked. Whether there could have been a more efficient route to go down, maybe though they wouldn't have followed that. Maybe they wouldn't have stayed consistent with it. So I do think most diets are fads. I do have my own way that I like to structure things with a diet and how I like to manipulate things and change things. But at the end of the day, if it gets the person from A to B without any kind of bad health effects, then it works.
Yeah. So we'll go back. Is there any trends that you think are overrated? If
Yeah,
not, that's okay. I just didn't know if there was anything that you like that got under your skin or pissed you off that you see on social media.
the biggest thing that pisses me off that I see on social media is people keeping their people not putting their head people not keeping their head back when they do log press. That's the biggest thing that pisses me off. When I see people trying to shoot their head through as quick as possible. But yeah, other than that, I'm not too clued up on the, on the latest trends.
No, that's fine. If someone could only focus on three lifts for overall strength, what would you pick?
Three lifts for overall strength, I would say squat, deadlift, overhead press.
Any any specifics on either one? Just regular back squat, regular deadlift, and straight barbell overhead press, or would you do anything specifically like safety bar squat or trap bar or like log or axle, or is it could be
I would say,
interchanged?
yeah, I would say they can be interchanged depending on kind of the individual's preference. I mean, as long as they're doing it, it's going to be better than nothing. But yeah, some kind of squat, some kind of deadlift, and then some kind of overhead pressing.
If you had to design the most simple, effective routine for somebody that is super busy with like work, whatever, what would you kind of make that look like on a weekly schedule? Would you have them, you know, trying to only lift like 2 days a week, 3 days a week, every day? Just kind of give your insight on what you kind of how you would kind of plan that out for somebody.
Yeah, so I would probably, if they're super, super busy, I'd probably give them like 2 days a week. One day would probably be lower focused, and then one day would probably be upper focused. I wouldn't plan too many accessories in there. Obviously, if they've not got too much time, I'd focus on the basics and the compounds into like I say, your squat, your deadlift, your overhead pressing, and if you can, maybe you're going to do some bench pressing or dumbbell pressing, and then keep the accessories to a minimum but obviously make the accessories more compound accessories, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you have any favorite go-to cardio exercises that you like to have people do or that you do yourself? Do you have like people that like to you do like, prefer walking, assault bike, or is it just personal preference?
Yeah, so I really like the assault bike. I like the assault bike because obviously it's not putting too much demand on your body at all, and it's a little bit less neural. But when I say neural, I'm talking about things like sprints. They're going to tax your nervous system quite a lot. However, at the same time, depending on where you are, and depending on how your recovery is, I do like to do things like Tabata sprints. And I also like to do in the off season 1 kilometer runs. This is something that I've taken from Mitchell Hooper, but I personally tested it on myself for a couple of months. I then give it to a lot of my clients for a few months, and I found some good results from it as well, just from building up general work capacity. Um, uh, yeah, I would say those.
Okay. I think I already know this answer from your biggest pet peeve on social media. But what's one cue? What's one cue that instantly improves a lifter's technique? I would assume you would say keep your head back on the damn log press, but
You got it right. 100%. Keep that head back
head
for that
back.
log.
Anything for squat or deadlift? A cue for somebody that
Um, Yeah, so probably the best cue I would give for squat is to focus on the foot pressure. You want to be thinking about as if you're standing on a piece of paper and you're trying to spread the floor. So you're trying to rip that piece of paper apart with your feet. By doing that, it's going to naturally switch on like your glute muscles, your hip muscles around there. So you're going to be a lot more solid. And then for deadlift, I would say the biggest tip is probably pulling the slack out of the bar. Obviously, it's not going to be so important for beginners, but as you get stronger and stronger, knowing how it feels and knowing how to pull the slack out of the bar is important for obviously your overall positioning and where your deadlift ends up being.
what's one piece of advice you've been given um that has really helped your training?
Uh,
Anything from Sebastian or I know your coach is Shane, correct? Is there
yeah, I would
anything that they've really helped you improve that they've given you?
I would probably say the biggest help and the biggest thing that has affected me is from my first ever coach back when I was 11, and that was he was a powerlifting coach. I still speak to him a lot now. He's a good friend of mine. He taught me everything about the mind. He taught me how literally the most important thing is to have a strong mind and you'll go as far as you want. So we used to literally do exercises and like sets and we'd make up our own kind of little circuits of the goal literally being to inflict the most pain on our body. Like it would be nothing to do with trying to build strength, build muscle. I mean, obviously it's going to do a bit of that anyway,
Yeah.
but the real reason to do these sets is to just literally build as much pain as you possibly can. Like we would do mental back-to-back death sets. Like yeah, it was crazy. And then what we'd also do, one thing is because I was young, I was only a kid. We would drive back home. He would drop me off back home after. And some days in England, you can get these crazy hot summers. And this was a crazy hot summer. So it was scorching hot. And we just finished doing a mental leg session. And then what we'd do is we'd put like the heated seats on full blast. We'd put the heating on full blast completely and it's already completely boiling in the car. And then as we drive back, we just sit there, and then the first person to open a window is a pussy, and we'd never ever open the window. So
That's
I'd
crazy.
say, yeah, I'd say building the mind is probably the biggest thing.
Okay. Yeah. What's one piece of advice you'd give to someone looking to maximize their strength potential?
Build muscle. Get first of all, just go in the gym, build muscle. You want to become train a bit like a bodybuilder, maybe. Obviously, you learn your compounds, but if you've got some muscle in your frame, you're going to be able to have more strength potential.
I know you mentioned the Arnold's encyclopedia at the beginning, but what's one book or resource you recommend to anyone serious about strength training?
Uh, One serious about strength training, I would say there's a book called Anatomy Trains. That's a very, very insightful book. It's a bit complex, but I found it extremely useful over the years.
Perfect. I have 10 rapid fire questions for you here at the end. Uh, we'll just, whatever comes to your mind, just give me that answer.
Sick, let's do it.
What's your favorite strongman event?
Log press.
Log press. What's the heaviest thing you've ever lifted?
Uh, 360 deadlift.
What's that in pounds?
Uh, 800.
800.
I think so, yeah.
Uh, Atlas stone or log press?
Log press.
What's the most underrated exercise for strongman training?
Log press. Not joking. I'm most underrated exercise for probably front squat.
Front squat. What's your go-to meal before a big event?
Five guys.
What's the worst injury you've ever had in strongman?
Bicep rupture.
Who's your favorite strongman of all time?
Um, I've got a couple.
That's fine. You
Hard
can
to
name
pick.
them. You can name a couple. That's fine.
My coach Shane, one of my favorite strongmen of all time. Darren Sadler's one of my favorite strongmen of all time. I look up to Eddie Hall and his achievements of his strongman, and then obviously for himself.
Yeah. What's the hardest event in strongman in your opinion?
Hardest event in strongman. Anything long distance running.
What's the craziest training session you've ever had?
Craziest training session.
When that was brutal.
And that was brutal. I did I squatted 220 kilos for 20 reps in a leg session once, and that was the most pain I've ever been in my life.
Yeah, that sounds awful.
That was sickening at like 10 reps. It was like really hard at 10.
If you could give one tip to someone wanting to compete in strongman, what would it be?
Refine technique, make it perfect.
Perfect. Well, that's all the questions I got for you, Ollie.
Oh, there we go. No, I've enjoyed it, mate. It's been good.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time to be on here. Where can people follow you at?
On social media, Instagram's probably the best at coach_Ollie Clarke, but I am going to be bringing out a YouTube channel over the next couple of weeks, so that'll be out soon as well.
Will that just be under your name?
Yeah, that'll just be under Ollie Clarke or
Okay.
Ollie Clarke official, I think it's called. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for taking the time to be on here, and hopefully we can have another podcast sometime soon, and we can talk specifics about nutrition or anything that you want to talk about.
I'd love to, definitely. Let me know it's good and we'll get on it.
All right. Thanks, man.
Sick. Thanks for having me, bro.
Yep. Have a good night, man.
Cheers, mate. Speak to you soon.
Yep.